going public about saying, well, hey, you're all wrong.
The goal of therapy should be to get them out of therapy.
Artwork has to be on point before it can have any impact.
The fields in which we're in, what works for one won't work for another.
If I didn't do my research and find out what the fuck was going on inside my head, I wouldn't be here.
You're tuned into the Better Bloke podcast. I'm Matty.
And I'm Rob.
We're just a couple of average blokes who started a charity with one simple mission: to fuck off suicide as the leading cause of death for Aussie men our own age.
We talk shit, ask the big questions, and chat with guests that have been through the ringer and have come out the other side with a story that's worth hearing.
Some episodes will hit you in the feels, some will fire you up, and others will just give you a laugh and remind you you're not the only one out there winging it.
We also run events, connect with the pros, and build communities, all with one goal: build better blokes without all that fluff.
All right, let's get stuck in.
We are here with a friend of the show who's coming back to do a recap. It's the one, the only, Lini.
Yo.
How you going, brother?
Yeah. Welcome back.
Good. Just, finding my traction after a 2-hour road trip this morning. Gosh, through Gold Coast traffic. Ugh.
Gold Coast, construction site next to the ocean.
There's no reason for the traffic to be what it was. There was no crashes.
No.
It was just
Sheepish
traffic.
Yeah.
If we're going to start this podcast talking about traffic. I love it. How about we don't do that?
Okay.
And we jump into it. So you were one of our first guests. So we're talking probably a year now since you came on.
Yeah.
What's been going on in your life? Because you were working on the Blue project and then you've done a bunch of other things since then. Hit us with the recap.
Yeah, so pretty much recap. I'm still doing the Blue project. That's a forever thing now. However, the dynamic has changed a lot as I've become more knowledgeable in the space.
Let's rewind it back a little bit, because we've picked up a lot of new listeners since we last spoke with you.
Yep.
What is the Blue project?
Oh yeah, awesome. So essentially, I like to think of myself as someone that's a specialist in the suicide prevention space. No one's really doing suicide prevention because it's such murky ground. It's laden with, if you have ideas, and if an idea goes wrong, it could be cost a life, right? It's costly. So that fear inbuilt in people really turns people off from calling themselves suicide prevention specialists or advocates or whatever. So it's a hard field to kind of master, because there's no one answer. I think your knowledge base grows over time. So the Blue project essentially was me painting 10 of the most famous men in Australia, painting their portraits, and them kind of telling me about their most vulnerable moment and the tools that they use to get themselves back into a healthy mindset. That has since I got to a point where I was looking at the content from all these portraits, and I'm like, fuck man, I've got a documentary here, and the narrative just grew and grew. So the Blue project is this compared to the documentary, which is now this. It's huge. It will be huge, which is cool. So that's how it's kind of evolved, and it's gone from 10 to 25 of Australia's most influential icons, thought leaders, sportsmen. You name it. I've got them. So
who are some of the names that you've done portraits of?
So Jonathan Thurston, Mick Fanning, William Powerfish, Cody Simpson, Joel Parkinson, to name a few. I haven't released the others publicly yet, just because of that scarcity factor. I just kind of I've gone off social media a lot through my journey through growing, and always having something to release and all that sort of stuff. I know the power in what I'm going to drop eventually, 9 months to a year from now. So I don't need that constant validation of, having these guys consistently, up on my feed and all that sort of stuff. I just don't care. I care about the big picture at the end. So, that's where we're at.
You said earlier people shy away from the suicide prevention space.
Yeah.
And I've spoken with a lot of people about this. And maybe in the general population, that's kind of true. But in healthcare in general, you can't be a doctor or a nurse or a psychologist without understanding you're not going to save everyone.
Yep, correct.
So I think that's something that as people like us transition into the space, it's a learning curve of that. You're dealing with people for a moment, but what's happened in the 20, 30 years leading up to that moment is something beyond your control and your responsibility.
Yeah.
In some ways. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. There is when you have moments with people, it's hard to compound the 20 or 30 years that they've experienced and habits and whatever into a single conversation. And that's why, and this is probably going to be a bit controversial because I have so much respect for the people that work in this organisation. That's why I feel as though the slogan "Are you okay?" is now a bit defunct, and the reason behind that is because number one, nobody's okay, and number two, if we're using this question "Are you okay?" as a prompt to talk or raise awareness or have a conversation with people, and somebody actually responds to you, "I'm not okay," the people asking the original question aren't really equipped. Just us everyday guys just aren't really equipped to go, hey, well, here's an hour therapy session and talking about it and all that sort of stuff. And so that's why I've kind of leaned into the space of more statements instead of a question. I find people are more responsive to statements. And so my thing at the moment, I started You're Not Alone on one of my murals, and that gained a bit of attraction. It's a statement that says you're not alone. It's a let's have a talk, let's have a chat, but I also recognise that you're not alone in the way that you're feeling, and that takes away kind of like any shame or whatever that these guys are feeling. So yeah, I think that thought leaders in this particular day and age in 2025 have got a responsibility, I think, to observe that, because not everyone's got a psych degree. Not everyone has got the mental capacity, capability, time, or whatever to have a big conversation when someone is so vulnerable to open up and say, "I'm not okay." I think that probably would be remote.
I think it's important to
Be the response.
remember as well that a lot of blokes, even if you say like, "Are you okay?" a lot of blokes aren't going to give you the response that you may be wanting them to give you.
Yeah.
It's men communicate so differently.
Yeah.
That if you were to go, "Hey, Lini, are you okay?" If you're the majority of blokes, you would turn around and go, "Yeah, I'm fine."
Yeah.
Even if you're not.
Standard response.
Depending on the space, right?
Yeah, it's
That's why the
100%
space is
about the
important.
space.
And
Yeah.
the statement you're talking about, you're not alone. Look, we're not psychologists, but we have done some training in like the mental health first response. And outside of the podcast, we do have a lot of discussions.
Yep.
Guys reach out with those, I guess you could call them cries for help, or they just want to bounce ideas. And one of the biggest things that we've learned is a roundabout way of saying you're not alone.
Yeah.
Your problem's not unique.
Yeah.
That is trained and real in these psychological fields. So getting people to feel like they're not isolated is such an integral part of it.
Absolutely. I think probably I mentioned to you before I came on this morning that I've got a few probably controversial things to state, and you've asked about the journey. And the journey has changed a lot because my philosophy has changed a fair bit, and my approach to this whole scene has changed a lot. One of the most recent studies out at the moment, and so what I like to do is, like, when I talk about this sort of stuff, is to cite studies and cite research of that. It's actually been determined that the main factor or the main root cause of depression is talking about the past, is called rumination. So when you ruminate, which is going back into childhood trauma or any trauma and reliving it and talking about it and getting out and having no progress through that healing process, people like to call it, that is the main cause of depression in men.
Rumination amplifies negative emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I think is happening is there's a lot of conversation about having a conversation, about talking, and I'm wrestling with going public about saying, well, hey, you're all wrong. Like it's wrong to have a conversation and then have no action be brought up behind it. So that's kind of where my journey's taken me a bit, is the philosophy side of what I'm trying to achieve. And it's not until I've kind of am happy with where the philosophy is at, then I can go back out and go, hey, well, this is what I think's right based off X, Y, Z, study or whatever. And kind of draw it all into one single narrative,
I don't think there's one single answer with what works and what doesn't.
No,
especially with sort of
you're right.
The fields in which we're in. There's what works for one won't work for another, and I think that's why we cop so much backlash, is because what we're doing isn't for everyone.
Yep.
And we came out from day dot and we said that it's our demographic is our demographic.
Yep.
It's not gonna suit everyone.
Yep.
But the ones that do resonate with what we're speaking about, resonate with it really fucking hard.
Yeah. And it's such a nuanced and sort of layered thing when it comes to mental well-being. So we can say, like, I agree rumination is a primary cause of like keeping people in a hole, keeping people in a rut.
Yeah.
But it's one of the layers, right? So then we can look at everything else that got them there.
Yeah.
The things they're doing day to day, the things that happened to them in the past.
Yeah.
Other shit going on.
Yeah.
So that's where the conversation does get murky, because if you hyperfixate on one particular thing, you're not going to get your answer, because it's multifaceted. There's so many things going on.
Yeah.
And as Rob said, it's not like any one solution is going to fit everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
well, yeah, actually, Rob and I had this conversation coming down here. It kind of this whole conversation and talking and opening up and all that kind of thing became at the forefront of my mind when I understood that back when psychology was first introduced to the world through Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung and all that. They're like the godfathers of psychology. There was two main thought leaders at the time, and that was Freud and Alfred Adler. Freud's method of psychology is to go back down into the childhood trauma, go back and fix what's wrong or broken and any of that. Adler's method of psychology was to acknowledge that stuff, but to be goal-based, future-driven, self-promoting, self-healing. And what I found was that through Freud's method, you can monetize Freud's method. You cannot monetize future goal-driven, attainment, like self-achievement. You can't monetize that method. So it's my belief that back then, the real method of healing, which is being future-based, goal-driven, was put to the wayside in place of a method that could be monetized. And it's, the classic thing is like, wherever there's a problem, follow the money, And so this is why I've gone away from going back into the childhood and trying to heal it and trying to fix it. It's like, yes, like, let's acknowledge it. That's fine. But like, realistically, trying to fix something that happened 20, 30 years ago, you'll drive yourself bonkers doing that, And that's I'm starting to truly believe in Adler's method of psychology now, and so that's kind of in a roundabout way what I've had to undo a particular way of thinking, because a year ago when I was here, it was like, yeah, wicked, like let's jump on, everyone talk about it, everyone chat, and now it's gone from that to, hey, I reckon like let's acknowledge it, but let's also action what we're talking about. Like that's the next evolution in, in this mental health game, going from head to heart to hands type thing. It's like you have the initial thought, you have the conversation with yourself, and then you action it type thing. That's it.
How did you find getting yourself through like this journey that you've gone? Because I know we spoke about it briefly, but you were so heavily focused on your old thought processes last year when we spoke to you, and now you've just said that it was a bit of a journey to get you to where you're at now. Did that fuck with you at all?
Yeah, I had to so to change your mindset, you have to have firstly the skill of observing without bias. So when you have a really strong opinion about something, usually there's something to gain from that. Like you would know with the strong opinions that sometimes you have against some of your reels and all that sort of stuff. People have strong opinions because they want to gain based off the fact that they think they're right, or there's money in TikTok or whatever it is. So you have to go quiet. Like you have to really go, hey, hang on a second. Like, what I'm trying to talk about, like I've got a responsibility to the people that I'm trying to reach. Firstly, I'm in no way, shape, or form am I a thought leader or a progressive or anything like that. I'm just a guy that like paints murals and has messages on murals. But what I've had to observe about myself is that the messaging inside the murals and the artwork has to be on point before it can have any impact. And I've had to go back and sit by myself, observe what I'm saying, and dissect it without bias. So it's like, hey, well, if I was wrong in like talking about that, okay, I acknowledge that I'm wrong. Why am I wrong? What's the right method now, being aligned with my new philosophy? And how can I now find stories that align with that and go back into, the content that I'm trying to get out to the world?
Even with your new philosophy now, do you see the importance of your old philosophy and how that saved your life, though? So you appreciate that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not acknowledging that's. I'm not saying that that's all wrong. So Adler's method was to acknowledge the past, and so we do that. I think that what's wrong with today is that there's too much of an emphasis on a conversation, and the conversation just goes round and round and round. And when it goes round like that, that is rumination. It's, chasing your tail. And so at some point you've got to jump out of that pot and take action on what we're talking about. And so it's not so much a massive philosophy change. It's more a continuation or a growth from where I was at with that. I think that like, if you don't grow, you're pretty stagnant, right? And there's a lot of stuff that I disagree with in this, day and age when it comes to talking about everything. But, I'm not, my whole, follower base, they're not interested in my opinions about all this sort of stuff. They're just interested in what I'm doing, and so I'm not speaking to other people's opinions at all. I'm speaking to what I see in the message in my art.
I agree and disagree with some of that stuff, especially with the two psychological sort of thought things.
Classic fence sitter, Matty. No, I agree and I
lukewarm.
with
arts, you Luke.
So I do agree it was probably driven by money and what was easy and what made sense to, follow the method that looked at the past and keep people in therapy.
Yep.
I think that's a problem we're still seeing today because it's a business, right?
Yeah.
You want a repeat customer. You want recurring revenue.
Yeah, and I think it's disgusting.
So the goal of therapy should be to get them out of therapy.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make sense economically. So I agree with that.
Yeah.
But we've also seen big changes in the last 10 years in the types of therapy being done. So there's a little bit of a stigma about you're going to go to therapy and they're going to sit down and say what happened to you as a child.
Yeah.
Which happens less now than it did in the past with like the evolution of all the different kinds of therapy. That comes down to the therapist doing it and what's being taught to them in unis, which is a whole nother kettle of fish.
Yeah.
But I do think we're getting away from like the very heavy rumination of the past and blaming everything on the past. I think it is developing to having a more forward thinking approach about the future, about practical methods to improve yourself, while still being under the constraint of we need recurring business.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a 50-50.
Yeah.
I think you can monetize being goal driven and everything else that comes along with that, though, because life coaches have been doing it fucking years.
Well, now what you have is therapists like leaving therapy to become a coach because then they can just do whatever they want.
Yeah. No, I see that. And yeah, look, if we zoom out on the timeline, I think that's a testament. I think that's a testament to where people are at the moment. So we zoom out on a timeline. Are You Okay? Essentially, going back there, they started the whole conversation, right? So if we zoom out and observe the problem, how do we fix a problem? So we talk about it first. But if you stay talking about it, it's continual victimization. Like you're continually creating new victims and the attention that victimized people or self-victimized people get, whatever. But the evolution is exactly what you're saying. It's evolving into hey, I'm not satisfied with having an eternal conversation. I'm just not satisfied with that. What's on the other side of a conversation? Actioning what we're talking about. So I agree with what you've disagreed with me about.
Our mutual friend, he commented on one of our things yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about accountability. And he said he went to therapy because he wanted someone to listen to him and validate him because he felt like the world was against him.
Yeah.
And his therapist said, okay, you're right. Now what?
Yeah.
And that's kind of it, isn't it? It's like, all right, cool, you're validated.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right.
We had a conversation about 6 months ago, phone call, and we jumped into this theory you had about suicide. And your point of view was something to do with wanting to kill something inside of you, but not you.
Yep.
Recap that for the audience.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Well, so this is my documentary hinges off this conversation. So this is the part where I believe that suicide is preventable through education, and there's a bit to go through. It's pretty heavy. So the act of okay, well let's start with a thing called passive suicidality, right? Passive suicidality is the thought, I want to kill myself, or I don't want to be here, or I just want to sleep forever. It's a thought. It's an uncontrollable thought that comes into, wait for it, 80% of people's heads. But that's 80% of people have at some point questioned their own mortality. Now this is where You're Not Alone comes into it. Is people get scared of this thought. It's like, oh, I've never thought about killing myself, but they're not educated enough to know that that's a natural thought to have when you are questioning your identity, when you're growing, when you're changing, when essentially you red pill yourself, like, what is my identity? Who am I? Whatever. It's only when it's mixed with a deep spiral of depression and other mental illnesses that it becomes a problem. So passive suicidality, everybody, not everybody, that's a lie, but most people have at some point in their lives said, you know, what happens if I'm not here, or who's going to look after the kids if I'm not here? And I think there's a lot of confusion that thought is the black dog catching up with me. And I'm here to say that that's not true. It's a natural question, and this is gonna upset some people or whatever. And it's just like, you can't say that. But I genuinely believe that passive suicidality, firstly, the word or the label needs to be changed into like you're just studying the identity of yourself. But so we understand passive suicidality now is just a thought of identity that comes into our heads. And with that being said, when it gets to the point that it's weekly and daily and these questions keep coming up and whatever, I just want to kill myself, or I don't want to be here, or, you know, something needs to leave or whatever. The hinging point is that we're told that that's wrong to think like that. Where I believe that there's a truth and a lie that's involved in that thought train. And the truth is that we want to kill something, but the lie is that we want to kill ourselves. So what we actually want to do is kill the part of ourselves that got us to the point of questioning our own mortality. That's really what's going on. So if we're deep in the trenches of, I just don't want to exist, or this questioning your identity and allowing depression and that to mount up on you, which is, I've been through it lots before. You want to kill that part of yourself that got you depressed. That's what you're thinking. That's what's actually going on in your subconscious. I genuinely believe, or I'd like to believe, that we're all inbuilt with an innate sense of preservation of life. You know, like we all want to live, and we all want to live this good life and whatever. I think that this day and age is so wild with comparison being shoved in our face, you know, that we're being told what a good life looks like and whatever. And that's killing a lot of blokes as well. But the whole documentary hinges on your subconscious telling you what part of yourself you want to kill. You have to kill something. Like, your want for change has to be greater than your desire to stay the same. You know, that you have to kill a part of yourself to get out of depression, you know?
Yeah, suicidal ideation and the act itself doesn't always come down to the fact that they want to do it. They want the pain to stop, or the problems to go away.
Yeah.
And that's the solution that they've arrived at.
Yeah.
If you were to solve the pain or the troubles or the problems or whatever, they are left with the self of them that they want to stay here.
Yeah.
So exactly what you're saying, I agree with.
Yeah. Yeah. So I spoke about this on my last podcast, and I learnt. It's funny what you learn when you listen to yourself back talking, right? I'm going to be learning to talk more in 15-second increments that are powerful, because they're like the snippets, right? You know, it's funny. Anyway,
don't say the wrong thing on the rip.
No. Clip.
Yeah, it could come back and bite you.
Yeah. So I said this on my last one. There's the hot pan method, and it's an easy method. You got a hot pan. What happens if you put your hand on that hot pan? What are you going to do?
Burn your hand.
You're going to burn your hand, but what also is going to happen?
You're going to take it off.
You're going to pull away. So pulling away is your body's response to pain. It's changing. So it wants to change the environment, the situation. So the natural response to pull away is changing. The natural response to pulling away is changing the situation that you're in. So if we were to apply that method to our subconscious and our lives and the way we think, if we were to change the words, people these days have a lot of limiting beliefs in that, or I've got anxiety, or I've got PTSD, or I've got depression, I've got this, and they attribute their whole identity towards that, and that's okay if you've got that. But if you were to change those words in your brain from I've got anxiety to I've got pain, or I've got PTSD, I've got pain, and keep reusing that word pain then becomes a prompt for change. If you understand through education, right, that you're experiencing pain, you're more likely to change. Instead of going, I've got anxiety, how do I then fix all the symptoms of anxiety? Blah, 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 blah. It's a whole rabbit hole of different methods, and no one book or rule book on how to fix it, no one method and all that. But if you simply just change those words in your head to say, man, I'm experiencing pain, and it is pain. Anxiety sucks. Depression sucks. It's painful. Lying there in a bed for a week, staring at a wall, raw dog on a wall, it's fucked. It hurts. I've done it.
Raw dog on a wall.
You raw dog on a fucking wall, man. Yeah, like Macca's bottles and wrappers and shit all strewn through your room. Like, it sucks, man. And I've been there, and you just change the word from depression to pain. And as soon as you realize it's pain, it's like, fuck, I've got to change that. How do I change that? It's an easy method. There's another easy method to educate yourself about how much control you've got over the voice in your head. So I'll do it with you now. So what I want you guys to do in your head is scream your name as loud as you possibly can. So right now, just scream it. Like, as fucking loud as you can. So done that? So now, what I want you guys to do is whisper your name as lightly as you possibly can inside your own head. You did that?
I've felt that.
Yeah.
Felt the whisper.
Yeah.
Carry on.
So now, if you were to observe what you just did to yourself, is you controlled a scenario of the voice in your head. So you allowed your voice to yell and scream, but you also allowed your voice to whisper as well. So when you have the knowledge that you have full control and full self-control over that voice, it's like, well, that should bring your power back to you. You should actually feel empowered after that, knowing that you have control over that voice. There's a few little exercises you can do. Yeah.
I actually felt like a calming sensation go down my chest when I did the whisper.
Oh, cool. Good.
I was the opposite. I felt good with the yelling.
You felt good when you're raging.
Yeah. I think that's probably like just, I don't know, a good example of like the two different responses.
Individuality.
From two different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, I know we're getting short on time because you got a call.
Yeah. Well, that's all good.
One thing I wanted to talk about was when you came on last, you have been the guy at the end of the rope. You've been the guy that's been in the darkest spots.
Yeah. Going
through this journey where you've educated yourself, you've really put a lot of thought into that. How's your mental health been over the last year?
I've had to check myself a lot. A change in belief systems is pretty hard on the old nervous system. Sometimes you get your thoughts that fly away and whatever. It's like, fuck, have I said something wrong? Have I influenced? Has someone listened to what I've said and then followed that as gospel now? I think also coming into faith as well has changed my mentality a lot. It's a deeply personal thing for me. I've focused more on checking myself now. And utilizing the tools that I've had in previous years to make sure that I'm, at some kind of level where I can function as a normal human being, And it's been good, in my work as well. Art is a reflection of reality, and the famous saying of the tortured artist, right? And only good work is from a tortured artist. I agree and disagree, but there's a lot that goes into the subliminal messaging inside art as well. And I was able to deliver a pretty sick mural for a mine site in Kalgoorlie and get that message out. And I couldn't have done that if I was in a pretty shitty place, so continually checking myself. And it's daily, man, It's happiness and joy and, gratitude. It's not a linear thing. It's not this. It's up and down. And I think that's one of the big lies that's peddled through this comparative social media thing that we've got, is that, you only see the good things about people's lives, and people believe that that's what life is. It's just every picture is great, but it's not. So it's a continually checking yourself daily. Mm.
Yeah, the education piece you keep talking about, you almost talk about it for other people, but you've educated yourself.
Yeah.
So you have found all these things you've learned to be kind of a helpful tool in the toolkit.
Yeah. Yeah. If I didn't have that education, I wouldn't be sitting here, man. It's like I've had serious mental health issues. I have not been well in the head in previous years, and if I wasn't educated, if I didn't go on DYOR, if I didn't do my research and find out what the fuck was going on inside my head, I wouldn't be here. But it's pretty simple. And it's because I've had that education, I want other dudes to have the same education and like tell them that it's possible, Yeah. Epic.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Mm.
I know you can you can see how happy you are with yourself because you've done your own sort of soul searching education on yourself.
Yeah.
So, which is, I know it's a stark contrast from our last conversation.
Yeah.
Where I know you said, there's been hard days going through this, rediscovering the different philosophy in which you want to put out.
Yeah.
But I think you can see the silver linings in it.
Oh, yeah.
When you look back.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. It's not dull, and it's been a journey. It's been rough, man. Rough as guts. But I think anyone trying to trailblaze is will always have that heat on them, for sure.
Speaking of blazing the trail, what's next for Lini? This documentary?
Yeah, the doco. Yeah. So I'm super quiet publicly about this. So there's lots that's going into it. It's going to be awesome, man. It's going to touch a lot of hearts, that's for sure. And essentially, all it is all of my education put into a pretty fun narrative and some fun activities. That's probably I'd love to say, let's do the next interview after I've released it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Because it'll be like, hey, you've all watched it now, let's go through it, I'd love to do that for sure.
Done. First interview once the doco releases.
Done.
Deal.
Yeah, deal.
Done.
Yeah.
See? It's that easy. With us just cutting deals.
So we'll bring the podcast setup to the red carpet.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, you guys may as well bring the podcast setup out into the desert in New South Wales, because I'll have something set up out there, which is cool. So that'll be hopefully at the start of next year, which is cool.
Beautiful. That's a lot of little
hints
for people out there. But on that note, I think we're good to round that one out.
We should round it out. Can't thank you enough for coming on, brother.
Yes, man. All good.
As always, appreciate the time you've given us in the conversations.
Always, mate. Love it.
As always, be better. Thanks for tuning in. If you got anything out of this, be sure to show some love on whatever it is that you're listening on, and follow us across all our socials.
If you want to know more, head to betterblokeproject.org, where you can learn about the programs we deliver, find out about upcoming events, and donate to the cause of building better blokes.